My name is Dr. Tabitha Njuguna. My areas of specialization are in finance. I teach areas of corporate finance, investment analysis, and portfolio management, real estate finance, and in the recent past, developing interest in sustainability and climate finance. So when we talk about climate finance, we are referring to the flow of funds that are necessary to combat the changes in climate. This could be funds that are directed towards actions in mitigation and actions towards adaptation. Mitigation actions are actually efforts towards reducing greenhouse gas production, and this could be through use of renewable energy. On the other hand, we also have adaptation. And when we talk about adaptation, we are referring to activities that will help us to cope with the climate change and also to build resilience. This could be through climate-smart agriculture activities, planting drought-resistant crops, and also activities like building infrastructure that will help communities that are most vulnerable to be able to cope with the flood situations and such. We acknowledge that climate finance is very necessary, and it matters now because of the adverse effects that we are seeing due to climate change. There has been increase in incidences of floods, incidences of heat waves. We're also seeing cyclones that are affecting the community. And therefore, think of climate finance as the fuel that will enable mitigation and adaptation to these changes. One of the emerging trends that we are seeing when it comes to climate finance is the increased use of private sector finance, which is in collaboration with what is available from the public sector and philanthropic organizations. Public sector funds have been used largely to de-risk, or that is to help reduce risk for the private sector so that it can enable them to come and undertake climate finance investments and be able to make a return, which is mostly a concern for the private sector investment. Secondly, there is increased emphasis on the use of adaptation finance as opposed to mitigation. So for a very long time, funds have been channeled towards mitigation activities, for instance, in renewable energy, and adaptation finance had been left behind. But with the increased advent of climate impact, there's been enormous need to start channeling funds towards adaptation finance. So this is becoming more popular with time. Another key development adjacent to adaptation finance is the emergence of the Fund for Responding to Loss and Damage. This fund is a financial mechanism that is designed to provide assistance to developing countries that are particularly vulnerable to irreversible effects of climate change. These countries have faced enormous adverse impact of climate change that they did not primarily cause, and hence the need to support them beyond the funds that are directed towards adaptation and mitigation. Another trend has been on leveraging on technology, the use of blockchain technology, data analytics, and this has been useful in trying to map, for instance, where the most vulnerable need is, or also to enhance transparency when it comes to the channeling of climate funds to respective uses. Another emerging trend has been seen in adoption of nature-based solutions. These are natural processes and ecosystems to enhance resilience, such as restoring wetlands to mitigate the floods or implementing reforestation projects to combat soil erosion. Lastly, there's also been increased focus on community-based approach, where we are fronting the community that is vulnerable and adversely affected by climate change to lead in some of these initiatives. Climate finance is more than just figures on the spreadsheet. It is about equity, it is about justice, it's about promoting shared prosperity. And for Africa, climate finance is a safeguard for livelihood. It is about energy access. It's about protecting vulnerable communities from adverse climatic conditions and also promoting food security. The beauty is that climate finance conversation has ceased to be a peripheral topic, and it is now on the table being discussed in the global arena. Therefore, whether you're a businessman, whether a policymaker, an academician, or any individual, it is important that we make sure that these investments happen.